Hello, everyone. It's Cassandra Williamson. I am coming to you from Eastern Kentucky up in Pike County, which is right along the border of Mingo County and in West Virginia and Buchanan County in Virginia. That's where Pike County is. That's where I'm at. And here in the Hatfield-McCoy feud country, folks, welcome, welcome, welcome. There's a lot of good stuff around here. The scenery is beautiful, actually, and there's a lot of trails. If you like to go trail riding and stuff like that, I'm talking about ATV trail riding. There's a lot of that here all over the place, the Hatfield-McCoy Trail System. You need to come on out and check it out because, it's not like a single thing that I remember from my youth here in these hills. Back then, I always thought it was dusty, muddy, nasty, and dirty and everything else, and I was in a hurry to get away. But now that I'm in my 60s, I'm 66, the world is a little bit different back here now. There are very few coal mines anymore because they have pretty much kind of used up all the coal and got it all out of the ground that they could possibly get. But the crazy thing is the stuff that they use, the refuse that was left over, the slurry pits and stuff like that, or the impoundment sites for the mines and the preparation plants around here, those things have some precious stuff in them, like lithium and things like that. That's all there. That's all right there. We just have to figure out a way to get it out of there because that's where a lot of the money is, and the U.S. needs that right now, right? We need to have sources of lithium and other types of metals like that and other types of chemicals so that we can actually be secure and safe and not dependent upon others, right? That's what we need to be doing. Anyway, we got the resources here, natural resources. We already dug it out of the ground. All you got to do is figure out how to separate it out. Anyway, so there's been a lot going on in the world today, but the biggest thing is that President Trump did meet with President Zelenskyy of Ukraine, as well as the European leaders and the president of the European Union, and all at the White House today. So it was a very busy day at the White House. There are lots and lots of vehicles showing up, and it was a very formal type thing. And Zelenskyy wore his customary black tee to the basic meeting, to the meetings prior to all of that. And then obviously, he wore a black jacket with that black tee underneath it. The black jacket was buttoned up. But good for him. Good for him. Because we don't have that right to tell another country's leaders how to dress to come to our White House. Do we really? No, we don't. Would you tell somebody from Saudi Arabia that they could not wear their traditional clothing to come to the White House? I don't think you would. No. Anyway, so I hope the meetings went well. So I just want to say this very loudly. I want to say it clearly, too. I hope the meetings went well. I hope that we accomplished some things from that. I've got my news turned off in the background right now so that I'm not checking it out. I don't know. I know that Zelenskyy is supposed to be over on Fox News at 6, sometime around there on the news program that starts at 6. I don't know the outcome. I don't know if he agreed to any kind of terms or anything like that. I know that President Trump had been pushing for that and brought all the leaders of Europe, invited all the leaders of Europe to come in and participate in the discussions and to be heard. And I have to tell you something. This is going to sound strange to some of you, but you know that I call balls and strikes. And what we have right now is a president in the United States who is actually acknowledging and actually doing something about and is appreciative of the fact that because of the United States' unique position in the world, after World War II, we're the strongest economy, the strongest military in the world, and we are the leader of the world, essentially. That's who we are. So whenever these conflicts arise around the world, it's our responsibility. We've had this responsibility for 70 years to try to figure out a way to resolve those things. And President Trump has done that. So I applaud him for all those things. He's done a great job. He is being a strong leader on the world stage. And that's a difficult thing for some people to hear from me in the community that I'm in. And all I can tell you is, that's what I see. And I know history, know a little bit about history. I'm not a world-class expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I know a little. I know enough to be able to piece some things together, and also enough to know when I don't know something. Let me just say that clearly. These are all my opinions, all right? These are all my opinions. So, yeah, we'll just have to deal with all that. So, anyway, after World War II, we were the de facto world leader. And we have continued in that role, albeit weakly, not WEEK, but WEAK. Since then, we've never actually stood up and done what we should have been doing around the world. And that's doing everything we can to put down these conflicts around the world where people are losing their lives. President Trump is doing that. I hope he can continue doing that. But that's about the only thing that I agree with Trump on. I do think we have a place, as America, we have a place in this world that requires us to exert our influence, our economic influence, and our military influence to keep the peace as much as possible and to work toward that wherever it may rise. Right now, we've got problems going on in Sudan and South Sudan, right? That's been going on for a long time. That needs to be resolved. So President Trump is by far the strongest of all the leaders in the past 70 years to stand on the world stage and actually use our responsibility to try to accomplish some good. However, that is where my interest in the good things that Trump is doing, and that's a good thing on the world stage. I mean, that's really great. I'm glad that he's being that strong leader on the world stage. We need that. This planet needs that. But his attacks on the civil rights of minorities in the United States and around the world is atrocious. Every time he has something to say at the United Nations, if in those documents or in those proposals or in those whatever they're working on, agreements, whatever they're working on, if it's got the word gender, gender identity, DEI, transgender, anything like that in there, even though the bulk of the piece of proposal is correct, he will refuse it until they remove those words. Now, he's employing that global leader kind of thing, but in this particular case, he's wrong. And doing it inside the country, because every person in this country deserves the right and respect to live as themselves and not be harassed by other people because of it. Now, there are limits to that, of course. There are limits to that. Just like you cannot yell fire in a theater or bomb on an airplane or a train or anything like that. You can't do those things because no right is absolute. There's no such thing as an inalienable right. None. It can be taken away. It can be given to just very easily. All you have to do is just go to your legislative body and say, okay, we want to abridge that right just a little bit so that you can't say fire in the theater. It's done. We want to take away the civil rights, the human rights of certain group of people because we don't like them. Now, that's wrong. It can be done. It is being done. And unless you're the target of some of those rules and regulations or those different policy things that are taking place in the U.S. right now, unless you're the target of them, you really don't have a reason to even know about them, do you? Unless you hear it from me or others or pay attention to it. If you go over on Fox News and you watch The Five or you watch Will Cain or you watch Laura Ingraham or whoever, John Scott on the weekend, you'll find that trans people live rent-free in the heads of these people, and that I'm just going to start telling them, hey, look, I'm in your head now. I mean, you let me in there, and you just can't seem to get me out. So why don't you just start calling me by my name? Just call me Cassandra. I'm good with that. Just come on, let's have a conversation. I'm in your head, right? Come on, folks. Come on. Why are you letting people live in your head like that and so much? Because it makes the rest of us think that you've got a fetish for us. Yeah, it makes us think that you have a fetish for us. You can't get us out of your head so much that you are just like, oh, really? There's a trans person. Oh no, I got to protect myself from that. The only way I can protect myself is legislate them out of existence because I'm weak. That's what it seemed like to me. I don't know how about the rest of you, but I do know that's how it feels like to me. And it's I just just basically gets all over me whenever I'm sitting there and I'm going, all right, is Greg Gutfield going to say something about trans people? Oh yeah, there it is. Is Jesse Waters going to say something about trans people? Oh yeah, there it is. You don't have to wait very long in their shows. Somewhere along the way, they'll mention it. They've got to throw them in as being something that they just can't get their heads wrapped around. And obviously, they must just want a big hug from me or something like that. I'd give them a free hug. If they want a free hug, I'll give them a free hug. I won't even charge. I know most of you think that's who we are, but that is not the case. Who I am has nothing to do with sexuality. Nothing to do with sexuality. And I got to turn that thing off because it is just ringing. But anyway, so, phew, a lot going on in D.C. I do hope the president is able to achieve something and to accomplish the goal of bringing peace to Ukraine. And now, if only he could extend that to getting peace in Gaza. But with Gaza, I will tell you this flat out. Hamas is a terrorist organization. The Palestinian people in and of themselves are not. Hamas is an extremist terror organization that must be destroyed. It cannot ever be allowed to come back. You cannot negotiate with that. Here's why. In the Quran, if a person is not a follower or a believer or, not under the thumb of the Quran, then any agreements that you make with anyone who is not one of you, you don't have to keep it. You don't have to do anything about it. You can lie, cheat, and steal against that bunch of people because that's the way the Quran is written. And I've read it. Have you? It's in there. So go check it out, sometime. Go, if you dare. But go, that's what it is. And Hamas believes wholeheartedly that if it makes any kind of agreement with anyone, that if they are not Muslim, particularly their extremist version of Muslim, then that agreement is just a piece of paper and they'll just roll it up and use it in the toilet the next time around. They'll say whatever you want to hear. They'll do whatever they want to do and try to get you whatever you want them to do. They'll agree to all this kind of stuff and then just immediately revert back to bombing places or attacking and killing people again. And you're thinking, well, we've lost so many people in Gaza. It's a humanitarian crisis. Yes, it is. It is, but that's because of Hamas. Hamas is the cause for that, not Israel, not the Palestinian people. Hamas is the reason for that. They embed themselves with the civilian population so that you cannot distinguish one from the other, but yet they kill indiscriminately. And that forces Israel to end up doing things that they would not otherwise want to do, just like the U.S. has had to do in various wars we've been involved in, right? How many people civilians were actually killed in Iran or in Iraq and Afghanistan? Hundreds of thousands. Because the enemies embedded themselves in the civilian population. You cannot separate them that easily. And so you ended up you do everything you possibly can to prevent it, to make precision strikes, but loss of life in a combat situation is real. And it's never, never easy to do, never something that you want to have to do, but you've got to take out that target that's causing so much pain to you and the community that they're involved in. And knowing that the militants are the ones who are drawing the fire to the civilians around them. That's Hamas. And going back over to Ukraine, that's also Putin. Putin has never lived up to a single agreement that anyone has made with them. Nope, not ever. He is and always will be a CCCP KGB agent. Say and do anything. They know how to manipulate people. They know how to twist your screws and tighten things up on you. They know how to manipulate people. They're skilled at it beyond anything you can possibly imagine. And I personally feel that Putin has done that same thing with Trump. Now, Trump is good. He's good. He's catching on. He's beginning to see that Putin is somebody you can't trust. But as soon as he meets him again, he gets all these, it comes across as being, well, it's Putin, you got to put him out on the stage. But the thing is, you have to always keep in mind, and I know that's what Trump is doing also, is that Russia is a nuclear power. They've got a lot of missiles. And we actually, let me just say that President Clinton actually forced Ukraine to give all of its missiles that it had in its territory back to Russia in the 90s. So Ukraine didn't have any nuclear weapons because at the time, Putin was just an adjunct working in the Kremlin during that period of time. But he was so frustrated with what they had done. They'd capitulated and sold out the CCCP and all that. And he was just pissed about it. He never thought they should have done that. He always wanted it back. And he is of the old Russian mold. You know what I mean by that? It's like in World War II, how many people did they lose pushing them out to the front line? Just 10 million to fight the war. They didn't care about their people. They were losing in combat. They just threw numbers at it, just massively overwhelm it with numbers, bodies, and death, without regard to anything except for the goal of pushing back whoever they wanted to push back. That's what's going on in Ukraine with Russia too. And that's why they've got 400, 500,000 deaths, maybe approaching 1 million possibly. I don't know. I'm not quite sure of the numbers there. And I'm sure most people can't really figure out those numbers exactly either. But Ukraine has lost far fewer. And Russia, this big country, has just thrown everything they can at them. And they're still doing it. Even while these discussions were going on in Washington today, Russia was bombing Ukraine. He's trying to do everything he can to get as much territory as possible before he settles on something. But it really doesn't matter what he settles on either. You know why? Because give him a few years and he'll go after the rest. His stated goal has always been to rebuild the satellite states of the Soviet Union. It means Ukraine, Czechoslovakia, Poland. He wants them all back. He's made that clear. He stated that publicly. We know what he wants. He's told us what he wants. So why negotiate? Well, because we hope, this is my hope anyway, we hope that we can get something that lasts long enough for him to disappear or to die off of old age. That's what I hope. I don't want us going over there and assassinating anybody. No. Don't even go down that road. You'll end up with World War III. You know what happens after the end of the wars? And this is me just speaking my mind and just doing kind of the brain dump stuff. What happened after World War I? League of Nations was founded to try to find a way to prevent World War again from ever happening. Whatever came of the League of Nations wasn't strong. It didn't have any power. It could not prevent World War II. Had no power whatsoever. It just was there as a means for some conversation between people who just were lying to each other the whole time. World War II rolls around. And at the end of World War II, what happened at the end of World War II? We moved the League of Nations and made it stronger and created the United Nations. It had no teeth either, but it was a little bit stronger than the League of Nations. If another global war happens and is as bloody and is as dangerous and so many millions and millions and millions of lives are lost, property destroyed at the end of World War III, can you project what might happen? I can. They will take the United Nations and put it on steroids. The independent sovereignty of the nations will be like states in the United States. So you have to decide, are you willing to push the button that far? Just how far are you willing to go? Because ultimately, if this ends up to be something massive, and it could, because you've got things going on over in the South China Sea, you've got things going on in Ukraine, things going on in Palestine, things going on in Sudan. Could very easily just spark a global war in a heartbeat. But let me just end this by saying this. I said it at the top of the show. I do applaud what President Trump is doing on the world stage in terms of being a strong leader. It's important that we do that. That is our role. That is our mission in the world. It has been since the end of World War II. Strongest economy, strongest military. Innovation occurs here to massive amounts of integration, or what do you want to call it? Innovation. So there's a lot that goes on here. We've moved the world and shaped the world in huge ways. We've seen it go from backwards in some places to being very modern, even here in this country, but around the world too. We have a role to play to move the nation forward. We cannot allow the Christian nationalists and the Christian dominionists, though, to take over this country, because otherwise, if we do that, you know what we're going to look like? You know what a theocratic nationalist nation looks like? Just look at, I don't know, let's pick Iran or Saudi Arabia. How's that? Just go take a look at that. That's what a theocratic nationalist government is. It doesn't matter which religion. It's the power that is corrupting. It's the power that will get abused. Shrouded in any flag that you want, shrouded in any kind of belief system that you want. But fascism and theocratic nationalism go hand in hand. You could say a theocratic fascist and a theocratic nationalist are basically the same kind of thing, because they always end up in that place. So be careful for what you wish for. Have a great evening, everybody. This is Cassandra.